Stories dive deep into family betrayals, heartbreaking accidents, and relationships pushed to the breaking point. From a teen being blamed for his stepsister's devastating injury, to a niece refusing to forgive her father's affair, to partners clashing over money, gifts, and even the messy reality of kids, these AMI the asshole stories will test where your loyalties truly lie. If you enjoy these dramatic Reddit stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm pushing for 10K subscribers, and every single one of you helps us get there. Now, let's get into it. Am I the asshole for not paying for a wedding I'm not attending? The writer begins her story with a relationship that was still in its early bloom. She's 30, he's 31. Joe. They met in May, only a few months back, and like so many relationships in that delicate getting to know you stage, it carried promise but also pressure. Soon after they started dating, Joe asked her to be his plus one at his friend Meg's wedding. She had never met Meg, but she agreed, because that's what you do when you're building something new. You say yes to the invitations, the introductions, the opportunities to step into each other's lives. RSVP sent, plane tickets booked, hotel reserved. Everything was in motion. But love doesn't always grow the way we hope. Sometimes the cracks show quickly, and with Joe, one of the biggest cracks was money. The writer describes herself as frugal, living paycheck to paycheck, carefully stacking every dollar into a small savings she can't afford to waste. Joe, on the other hand, was more comfortable throwing money around on creature comforts and indulgences. Their philosophies clashed. It wasn't the sole reason they broke up, but it was fuel to the fire. So she ended things. And she ended them when she did, 5 weeks before this wedding, because she didn't want to linger, didn't want to end up immortalized in photos from an event that had nothing to do with her. That was her line in the sand. She was ready to walk away clean, and to her credit, she wasn't walking away empty-handed. She offered to cover her own costs. She told Joe she'd pay him back for her share of the plane ticket and her half of the hotel room. Over $400, everything she had in savings, wiped out in one gesture of good faith. She wanted to close the book fairly. But Joe? Joe wasn't finished with her wallet. A few days later, he called her and demanded more. Another $125. Why? Because according to him, his friend Meg, the bride, would be out the money for the writer's plate, the food, the reception seat, the vendor deposits. Joe framed it as the writer's responsibility to reimburse Meg through him. And this is where the line between fairness and absurdity sharpens. The writer pushes back. She points out that she's given notice, a month and more, plenty of time for Joe to find another plus one or for Meg to reshuffle her plans. She points out that guests don't pay for their plates at weddings. That's the risk of inviting someone. Life happens. People cancel, and sometimes seats remain empty. It's not personal. It's not a bill. It's the reality of hosting. And here's the kicker. She wouldn't even have to pay if she was attending. So why on earth should she pay for not going? Now let's slow down and consider the bigger picture. There's a principle at play here, and it's one many of us forget when emotions and money get tangled together. Weddings are not a paper plate system between guest and host. They are invitations, not contracts. When you invite someone, you accept that risk. Whether they show up or not, the responsibility is yours. That's the unspoken agreement of hosting. But Joe is trying to flip that unspoken rule into a personal debt. And what strikes me most is how manipulative this looks when you zoom out. The writer is already giving up her savings to cover expenses she technically doesn't even owe. And instead of seeing that as grace, Joe sees it as an opening to squeeze out more. It makes you wonder, was money always just one of those little arguments, or was it a pattern of expectation of him leaning on her more than he should? Because think about it, who asks their ex to pay extra for a wedding she's not even attending? That's not just tone deaf, that's audacity. So is the writer the asshole here? No, absolutely not. She's already doing more than most people would. The majority would cut ties and walk away with zero guilt. She's covering her own ticket, her half of the hotel, and giving up her entire savings just to part on fair terms. That's more than generous. Joe, on the other hand, is showing us exactly why this relationship fell apart. His priorities are misaligned, his sense of fairness skewed, and his loyalty, well, it seems to bend in whatever direction benefits him most. The truth is, Sometimes you don't need to wait for years to see who someone really is. Sometimes it takes just a few months, a breakup, and a wedding invitation to pull the mask off. And for the writer, walking away now might have cost her $400, but it probably saved her years of resentment down the road. Am I the asshole for refusing to accept blame for my stepsister's accident? All right, let's set the scene. The writer is 16 years old, a teenager who, like most teens, is just trying to juggle school, friends, and some semblance of a normal life. His parents divorced, dad's single, mom's remarried, and with that remarriage came a stepsister, 10 years old, full of energy, the kind of kid who still needs a lot of supervision. The custody arrangement is pretty standard: 1 week with mom, 1 week with dad, back and forth, switching lives every 7 days. And while both parents are in the picture, the relationship dynamic is uneven. The writer gets along better with dad. Mom, she's demanding, maybe controlling. Certainly the type of person who blurs the line between what's fair to ask of a teenager and what's just passing adult responsibilities onto a kid. Here's where it gets messy. Mom doesn't respect boundaries. She texts the writer during school hours, fully expecting immediate replies. Doesn't matter if he's in the middle of class, taking a test, or sitting in a lecture, she wants answers. She'll ask him to pick up groceries, grab takeout, or now that she's remarried, take care of his stepsister. And we're not talking casual, hey, can you keep an eye on her for 5 minutes? No, she's made him stand outside basketball practices for an hour, walk her home across town, essentially take on the role of a third parent, even though he's only 16. And let's not forget, the writer doesn't even drive. So all of this is done on foot, eating up his time and energy. Now, his dad and even his teachers noticed how disruptive this was becoming. They encouraged him to silence his phone during school to draw a line, because he's not just a son, he's a student, and school comes first. Eventually, the writer listened. He put his phone on silent during the day and checked it after. Reasonable, necessary, healthy. But here comes April, the day everything changed. The writer had after school activities, so his phone stayed silent. When he finally checked it, he saw multiple texts, a missed call, even a frantic voice message from his mother. She had told him, not asked, told him, to pick up his stepsister from some Girl Scouts camping thing. And when he didn't respond, his mom went into meltdown mode. Why? Because the stepsister, walking home alone, got hit by a bike. She was rushed to the hospital with a broken leg and lasting knee damage. The writer got home to an empty house. Hours later, mom stormed in, furious, unloading on him. She said it was his responsibility, that he should have gone, that family comes first. She wanted him to carry the weight of guilt for something that, and let's be real here, was never his responsibility in the first place. But the writer didn't back down. He told her straight, it wasn't my fault. And that was the spark. Mom exploded. She called him heartless, cold, unsupportive. She said he should feel guilty, ashamed even. That by defending himself, he was proving he didn't care about his stepsister. Her husband, of course he sided with her. No surprise there. Meanwhile, stepped in and called mom out. Reminded her that the school, the teachers, and he himself had all told her this exact system. Texting during class, piling on adult tasks, wasn't sustainable. She ignored it. She gambled with her daughter's safety by refusing to plan properly, and now she's trying to make her 16-year-old son her scapegoat. And here's where we pause, because think about the weight being shoved onto the writer's shoulders. 16 years old, still a kid himself, and his mother is demanding he carry the blame for an accident that happened because she failed to make arrangements. It's not just unfair, it's cruel. The stepsister's injuries, tragic, painful. Nobody wants to see a child suffer, and yes, it's natural to feel sympathy, but sympathy is not the same as guilt. And guilt only belongs where responsibility lies. A 16-year-old who never agreed, never arranged, never even knew he was supposed to pick her up, that's not where the responsibility belongs. The truth is, this is bigger than one accident. This is about boundaries, about a parent who refuses to respect them, who demands her child take on adult burdens, and then punishes him when reality proves he can't. It's about shifting blame to avoid facing her own failure. Because it wasn't the writer's job to pick his stepsister up. It was hers or her husband's or anyone else she could have arranged with. But instead of taking accountability, she pointed her finger at the easiest target, her son. And the writer, he stood his ground, which at 16 takes a lot more maturity than many adults have. So, is the writer the asshole for refusing to accept blame? No, not at all. He's not heartless. He's not careless. He's a teenager who knows the difference between what's fair and what isn't, between compassion and misplaced guilt. His mother may not like it, but the reality is, he didn't fail his stepsister. She did. One's adults. Children carry the weight of those choices, and often they're expected to carry it silently. That's what makes this story sting. It isn't just about divorce, it's about a 16-year-old girl being told her feelings don't matter in the face of her father's happiness. Now, let's dive into what the writer shared. Am I the asshole for not being another person who begs my niece to let her dad off the hook for leaving her mom for someone else? The writer's brother left his wife, a woman he'd built a family with, for someone new. He fell in love with another woman, and instead of fighting for what he had, he followed the spark. Within a year, he divorced, remarried, and tried to blend the pieces back together. But the fracture wasn't just in the marriage, it was in his daughter. 16 years old enough to understand what happened, old enough to see her family break apart, old enough to form her own judgments. And her judgment? She resents him, fiercely. She has said in no uncertain terms that she will never accept his new wife. She will never play along with this happy family fantasy. She told her father she will always hate the relationship that destroyed her parents' marriage, and she made it crystal clear. If that means losing him, so be it. That's not teenage melodrama. That's a child drawing a line in the sand after watching her world collapse. But instead of respecting that boundary, the father, desperate to patch things together, enlisted reinforcements. The grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, everyone he could lean on. And one by one, they went to the girl with the same message. Forgive your dad, accept his choices, let go of your anger. They pushed, they pleaded, they moralized. And she pushed right back. She told them flat out she wanted her father and his new wife to feel miserable. She wasn't going to sugarcoat her pain to make their lives easier. And when she asked the one question that silenced the entire family, would you be saying the same thing if it was my mom who left for someone else? The room went quiet because everyone knew the answer. They wouldn't. The double standard was obvious, and she called them out on it. Now here stands the writer. He's the only one in the family who hasn't tried to break her down, the only one who hasn't sat her down to lecture her into forgiveness. He refused, flat out, because he values his relationship with his niece more than playing his brother's errand boy. He sees what the rest of the family refuses to, that pushing her only drives her further away. And maybe that's why she trusts him most. He's younger than the rest of the siblings, closer to her age, the one she leans on. And he knows if he betrays that trust by joining the chorus of voices begging her to get over it, he'll lose her too. His brother insists this is about saving a father-daughter relationship, that it should matter more than the writer's bond with her. But here's the truth. Saving that relationship isn't the writer's job. It never was. It's the father's. He broke it. He has to earn it back, if he even can. And when the grandparents and siblings guilt trip the writer, saying he is doing harm by refusing to pressure her, that's just misdirection. The harm was done long before by a man who chose his own happiness over the stability of his child's world. So let's talk plainly. Is the writer the asshole for refusing to beg his niece into forgiving her father? No. He's the only one showing her respect, the only one listening, the only one giving her the dignity of her own feelings. Everyone else has destroyed their relationship with her because they tried to force her into a script she refused to play. The writer chose differently. He chose empathy. It's not his responsibility to clean up his brother's mess. And honestly, it's not his niece's responsibility either. Sometimes broken things stay broken, and pushing a child to forgive on demand is nothing short of cruelty. The writer may not be able to heal her pain, but by standing by her side, he's making sure she knows at least one adult in her life takes her seriously. And that matters more than appeasing a brother who wants to skip accountability. Am I the asshole for breaking up with my girlfriend after she complained about the $800 necklace I got her? The writer, only 19, had been dating his girlfriend, 18, for about 8 months. And when her birthday came around, he wanted it to be special, not just another casual celebration, but something that showed effort, sacrifice, and love. So he worked extra shifts for 2 months straight, saved up nearly everything he had, and bought her a gold necklace with her birthstone. $800, practically his entire savings. This wasn't just jewelry, it was hours of hard work, nights of exhaustion, weekends given up, a symbol of how much she mattered to him. But when she opened the box, instead of joy or gratitude, her face just fell. "Oh, it's jewelry," she said flatly. No smile, no warmth, just disappointment. And then came the sting. "I thought you knew I don't really wear gold. I'm more of a silver person." That kind of reaction cuts deep because this wasn't about whether it was gold or silver. It was about recognizing the effort, the sacrifice, the thought. But instead of appreciating it, she dismissed it. And then she twisted the knife even further, asking, "Couldn't you have gotten me something more practical, like maybe helped with my textbooks?" Imagine saving for weeks, pouring your heart into a gift, and being told it was the wrong choice, that your money should have gone to something more useful. At that point, the writer had had enough. He told her if she couldn't appreciate the thought and effort behind it, maybe they weren't right for each other. She cried. She insisted he was overreacting. And before long, her friends were in his phone calling him an asshole, saying she was just being honest and communicating her preferences. But let's be real, there's a difference between honesty and cruelty. A preference can be expressed gently, with gratitude. What she showed was entitlement. Meanwhile, the writer's friends saw it clearly. She was ungrateful, and he dodged a bullet. Because if someone can't show basic appreciation after 8 months, what does that say about the future? So, is the writer the asshole here? No, not at all. What he did came from love, from sacrifice, and from wanting to make her feel special. Her reaction wasn't honesty, it was disrespect. And breaking up wasn't an overreaction, it was self respect. Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend she's going to have to get over dirt if she wants kids? So here's the situation. The writer, 25, has been with Amy, 27. And Amy, on paper, she sounds incredible. Smart, hardworking, the kind of person who makes order out of chaos. But here's the catch. She's a germaphobe. Not just likes things neat, but the extreme kind. We're talking toothbrush stored in a sealed Ziploc bag outside the bathroom, clothes hand washed after a single wear, a spotless apartment. Even her car floor looks like it just rolled out of the factory. It's impressive, yes, but it's also intimidating because the writer, she's clean, but not at that level. She doesn't live in filth, no mountain of pizza boxes, no sink overflowing with dirty dishes, but she also isn't bleaching her keys before she sets them on the counter. She's normal, human. And here's where things get tricky. Amy desperately wants kids, the kind of want that comes up often in conversations about the future. And the writer, she wants them too, but she grew up as the oldest of 4 siblings and 9 cousins. She knows kids. She knows the reality, the diapers, the tantrums, the messes that seem to multiply when your back is turned for just 5 seconds. She knows that toddlers are sticky little creatures who can find dirt in the cleanest house and somehow rub it on the walls. Amy, on the other hand, has never really been around kids. She believes, truly believes, that if they just work hard enough, the house can stay as spotless as it is now. That her future kids will be clean, controlled, tidy little angels who don't spill juice, don't finger paint on the walls, don't smuggle frogs in from outside. Now, the writer tried to gently explain reality. She asked, "How are you planning to handle diapers? Vomit? Or when a bowl of soup gets launched across the kitchen just because?" But Amy's response? Brutal. She said those things only happen because kids are poorly trained, that it's a boundaries issue. Boundaries for a 3-year-old. And this is where you feel the tension, right? Because Amy's idea of boundaries is treating a toddler like they're just a short adult who can reason, who can regulate themselves, who can choose not to spill their milk just for fun. But kids aren't wired that way. Anyone who's been around them knows it. They learn, they improve, but accidents, chaos, it's part of the package. So the writer told her point blank, if she wants kids, she's going to have to accept dirt. She's going to have to accept sticky hands, messy rooms, and maybe even a permanent grape juice stain in the carpet, because raising children isn't sterile. It's messy, loud, unpredictable, human. But Amy didn't hear that. Instead, she accused the writer of being unsupportive, of looking for excuses not to have kids with her. She even said the writer was trying to guilt her into being sloppier. Now the writer is left questioning herself. Maybe her childhood was just unusually messy. Maybe growing up rural and poor gave her a skewed perspective. Maybe Amy's right, and with enough discipline, kids can be trained into neat little robots. But let's be honest here. No amount of wealth, no amount of boundaries, no amount of Lysol is going to keep a toddler clean for more than 10 minutes. Kids spill, kids smear, kids destroy things by accident. And pretending otherwise is like saying you can have a dog that never sheds or a garden without dirt. It's not reality. So where does that leave us? The writer didn't say Amy can't want a clean life. She didn't insult her habits. She simply pointed out a fact. Children in spotless environments don't coexist. Not perfectly, not all the time. And being unwilling to face that truth doesn't mean the writer is the problem. It means Amy isn't ready for the chaos that comes with motherhood. So, is the writer the asshole for saying what she did? No, not even close. She's not shaming Amy. She's not refusing to have kids. She's setting realistic expectations before they take a leap that will change their lives forever. And honestly, that's not cruel. It's responsible. Because kids don't come with Clorox wipes in hand. They come with mud on their shoes, food on their faces, and love that outweighs all the mess. And if Amy can't handle that, then maybe it's not kids she really wants. It's the idea of kids.